symbol of excellence in sports entertainment.
Imagine that. Me, Vince McMahon. Imagine that. Here I am on WCW television. How can that happen? Well, there's only one way. You see, it was just a matter of time before I, Vince McMahon, bought my competition. That's right. I own WCW. I have the opportunity to address you, the WCW fans. I have an opportunity to address you, the WCW superstars. What is the fate of WCW? Well, tonight, in a special simulcast, you'll all find out. Because the fate, the very fate of WCW is in my hands.
Let's go out to the Straight Talk phone lines. And on the phone, I have my boy, Venkat. What's up, man?
What's going on, Trevor? Thanks for having me on the show.
No problem, no problem. And listen, before we get started, so just in honor of what type of show this is, I'm going to take it back a little bit. So from here on out, for the rest of the show, you're going to be known as by your wrestling name, the Big Cat. and me, Mr. Straight Talk, I am going by my wrestling name, TJ Hammer. All right, so this show is going to be fun, man. This is a show that I've been wanting to do, this type of show, because everybody knows my love for wrestling. And in the news, the most iconic wrestling figure of our lifetime has been dominating all the headlines. So on this show tonight, we're going to talk about Vincent Kennedy McMahon. So right off the bat, what's your thoughts about Vince?
Vince McMahon is like a blessing and a curse at the same time. There's a lot of things that he's innovated and helped drive the industry forward. The branding of the events like WrestleMania, SummerSlam, making them more epic instead of it just being a regular show, making you want to tune in to see it. But then at the same time, he scaled back on elements of wrestling that a lot of real wrestling fans would like. He did the PG era. We don't really care for that. At least I don't care for that. I like to see matches. You know that wrestling is a setup thing, but there's elements of reality in it. I like when it mends together nicely, where sometimes you can't even tell was that set up or not. I think we just suspend our disbelief a little and you just get into it. I don't like when it gets cartoony, and I think that's the bread and butter of WWF, really, when you look at all the the comical moments and characters. A lot of that corny stuff comes from WWF, even though WCW has done that as well with the RoboCop thing and maybe Shotmaster. But other than that, Vince McMahon, he's been a driving force in industry, but he's also kind of like held the industry back to being what it needed to be. So it's like there's some good, there's some bad. Maybe some will say there's a little bit more bad than good, but that's my opinion of Vince McMahon.
Okay, so clearly you're not a Vince McMahon fan.
No.
So yeah, I know. Let's go back a little bit. So when did you first start watching wrestling?
I would say the mid '80s. WCW, World Championship Wrestling, NWA, and the WWF. And as a kid, you would watch wrestling. And of course, there's a clear difference visually between what you saw with WWF versus what you saw with other promotions. WWF usually had the bigger arenas with the brighter lights and the larger than life characters. The other organizations, mainly, they're your NWA, your UWF, your other smaller, world class championship wrestling, those promotions, they didn't have the flair and lights and eye candy that the WWF had. But when you get older and you watch it for a while, you start understanding the techniques, understanding the wrestlers and the characters, and you get a better knowledge other than the straight ice cream that WWF is. When you get to understand the intricate details of wrestling itself, you start to understand and appreciate, people like Ric Flair and the Road Warriors, and
So
yeah.
so what so what I want people to hear already right off the bat, and we're only 3 minutes in this conversation, is that you're gonna hear from two real wrestling fans. This isn't gonna be just like, oh yeah, wow, pow. It's not gonna be any stupid stuff like that. We're really gonna go into the detail of it, as you can hear from the opening. I want to say for me, it was around about 1985, and
Mm,
oddly enough, Hulk Hogan is who solidified me and made me be like, boy, you know what? I'm hooked. It was seeing Hulk Hogan and King Kong Bundy.
mm,
But that's not what, because that larger than life Hulk Hogan, say your prayers, train, eat, take your vitamins, all that other crap that he would say. But surprisingly enough, that's not what got me into it. It wasn't a WWF product. I want to say one night, some in our family in the 80s, during, on Sunday nights, we would all go to the eldest person's house. And, the men would be out drinking and playing games and stuff. And the kids would be in the room, supposed to go to sleep. And one
mhm,
night they had the TV on 33. And I never forget, it was like 11 o'clock at night. And Georgia Championship Wrestling was on.
mm,
And
mm,
I saw Ole Anderson and Arn Anderson for the first time, the Minnesota Wrecking Crew.
mm. Yeah,
And you see, and when I tell you, man, what it was is like with every punch, you'd hear that crowd reaction, man, just like that, ooh, ooh, ooh. And that hooked me, brother. Like that, when I tell you I was hooked, like
yeah,
I couldn't get
and
enough of it.
yeah, and that's extraordinary that's your entryway into it, because that kind of wrestling is more, there's like a fine science to it and everything matters. You can, like, a scenario where, like, Starcade 87, you had the Road Warriors versus the Horsemen, Arn Anderson and
Chi-Town
Teddy.
Rumble.
Right. And you look at the Road Warriors, they're this big, muscular, towering team versus Arn and them that look just very average in size. So you're like, how are these guys going to even be able to be on the same playing field? And when you get into the match and you see the story unfold, you see how every wrist lock, every takedown, every hold that they're doing, how it breaks the team down. And now there's like a science behind it. And it's not just this, I am bigger and you are small, boom, in the head, and it's over. It's just like, it's a song and a dance, a nice balance. And I love when you see that, the catch as catch type wrestling where they go back and forth. Things can get really scientific. There's a counter for a counter. It's just a lot of amazing things that happen, and that's a flaw of the WWF, because they weren't really doing that outside of the British Bulldogs and the Hart Foundation, maybe a Tito Santana back in the 80s, 90s. They weren't really doing that. They were doing goofy. I'm bigger than you, and that stuff gets boring. Maybe as a little kid, yeah, a little kid will get admired. They'll admire that type of stuff. But when you get
Well,
older, you're looking for something else. That's when you go to the NWA, the WCWs, World Class, stuff like that.
well, even back in so you're talking about the so let's just talk about the territories. Um, it was New York, as it was called, the WWF's town. It was called. So well, hold on, let me give a little history here first. Vince McMahon didn't take over the WWF until June 6, 1982. Is when
Hmm.
he purchased the last remaining remnants of the WWF from his
Hmm.
father.
Hmm.
And so a lot of people say that that was the beginning of the end for the industry, but I beg to differ. But New York was always the land of the giants, so that's where you would see your Andre the Giant, your Bruno Sammartinos, your Hulk Hogan, your superstar Billy Graham, because Vince McMahon had a thing that if he would call it the airport test, where if
Hmm.
you walk through the airport and people would stop and look at you, then he could make money out of you. He can
Hmm.
make money from you. Whereas when you had now the more southern wrestling, which would be your NWA, they relied more on work rate. So you had your Ric Flairs, your young Ricky Steamboat, guys like that that
Put in the
really
work.
could give you, yeah, really give you a good wrestling match. And I think that's where me and you kind of differed growing up, because you were team WCW and I love WCW, but just not as much as WWF. And you elaborated on it earlier. You would always tell me, oh, the bright colors, and you would always say Hulk Hogan had his ketchup and mustard colors on. So
Yep.
what was the real big difference between the two feds?
I mean, WWF, they're more comic bookish, story time-ish. The NWA, it felt more realistic. Even when I was first introduced to wrestling, I remember guys in school would be like, "Yeah, WWF, that's the fake stuff, but the real stuff is the NWA." And the way that it would be, it would just be more, just I don't know, it's not insulting to the viewer. Their storylines were based more in reality. It was a logical thing that it could that the storylines, they would go in logical areas, whereas the WWF, they're doing just weird doink the clowns, and oh, I got a referee that it looks just like this referee, and we never met each other, but we're brothers, and it's just weird stuff that goes on in the WWF, and
Well,
it's
no,
hard to
no,
watch,
no.
and some of that stuff is like, ooh, especially like I think
You're
I think
talking
the
about the
early
twin.
early
You're talking
'90s.
about
My
the twin.
lord, it
You're
was
talking about the
brutal.
twin referee angle now. Hold on, that
Oh yeah, '88, Saturday Night's main event before the
you
WrestleMania.
to date that's still the highest rated segment on cable TV ever, right? That twin referee angle.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
It's god awful horrible, man.
Wait, you didn't like Hulk Hogan saying, "How much did you pay for the plastic
Yeah,
surgery?"
I know. Oh my
Oh my god.
god. Like these guys never met each other. They didn't grow up in the same household. No, he's not my brother. I mean, those things are insulting to the viewer. You just want a little bit more. Like when I watch like Sid Vicious, the Steiner brothers, Big Van Vader, when they come to the ring, guys were literally scared to death. You could watch on YouTube, like now that all these years have passed, there's a lot of shoot interviews where you get wrestlers just talking about times from the past. And a lot of the common thing is like in WCW on Saturday nights at 6:05 on TBS, you would always have mainly like those squash matches where you would have a superstar coming out and they'll wrestle like a no-name bum on the weekend, right? So, you'll get these guys, they're being interviewed and they're talking about like the most feared wrestlers to deal with in that scenario would be, of course, Vader, and of course the Steiner
Mhm.
brothers and Sid Vicious. Big Van Vader broke a rookie's back, Joe Thurman, for real, and you heard the crunching of his back on the power bomb. It's like when you see stuff like that, it's like it's almost like football. Like people like to watch football because they like the hits and they like the physicality, and that's like WCW or NWA. I genuinely like to see the actual matches versus the storyline aspect. I think the in ring work was more important to me. So I think that's your biggest difference between the two. They were more on a soap opera, whereas NWA, WCW, they were more on delivering a harder hitting, more compelling product in the ring.
So let me ask you a question, because I mean, because everybody sees this could go forever.
Mm,
Let me ask you a question. Do you think even with that hard hitting style, that in the long run, that's what was better? Because I agree with you. I love the realistic. Let me tell you, I remember the Horsemen did a angle where they were feuding with Dusty Rhodes,
hmm
and they met him at the bank or gas station or somewhere, and put his arm in the car door,
hmm
and no, they hit his arm with a baseball bat. That's what they did. And you hear Dusty Rhodes saying, "If you're gonna break it good." Listen, I long for that type of stuff now, man, because in that, all you cared about, you was like, oh man, when Dusty heals up, he's gonna come
hmm
back, and Dusty looked like us. He was a regular common man, He
hmm
when he's come back, he's gonna get his revenge on the Horseman. All he needs is like one or two buddies to help him, and so I long for those days. But
hmm
in the long run, is it what? Okay, compare it to today, just society today, that
hmm
our world just loves fluff. So maybe Vince was on to something with the cartoonish characters and the over the top storylines, and just the ridiculousness of it all. Do you think that old rugged, smoke filled Norfolk Scope arena was translatable to today?
Right, I get. You're making a good point there because it is going to be tough to at least introduce to new fans and have people want to watch the product on a compelling week to week basis, because that's not going to move it. But I think you could get a nice happy medium somewhere, and I think WCW for the most part got there when Nitro came out. I think you still had a little hard, the hard hitting aspect with more story. I think they were blending it well, at least the first few years of Nitro. I don't know what happened to us at the end of it, but the earlier part, it was the best thing. And even if you look throughout the years, like go back to the '80s, and you go roster for roster, WWF, WCW, or NWA, the NWA almost every year always had the better roster.
Don't
Like
do
it.
that.
Oh yes, they did. They almost
Don't-
always had the.
Let me tell you,
Remember,
do not
this is
do
this is the NWA or WCW with Dusty Rhodes, the Road Warriors, the Horsemen, Ric Flair, Sting, Lex Luger. I mean, just an amazing amount of
Hulk Hogan,
legend.
the Macho Man, Ravishing Rick Rude, Ted DiBiase, Demolition.
See now,
Come on,
now,
man.
now,
The
now, now,
British Bulldog.
when you break down that, right? So the most
Mhm.
legit guy on that list is Macho Man, right?
Macho
And
Man. You
he's the
got
most
me.
legit guy on
You
that list. Then you look at Ted DiBiase. Ted DiBiase was never like he's
got me.
not on that level. Ravishing Recruit is good, but they never was gonna ever push him properly. And then Hulk Hogan, they never made him lose. And if he did lose, it was always some or two referees or some kind of nonsense. It's never straight. And I think that did a disservice to Hulk Hogan himself. Because if you keep winning all the time because they want to keep this Hulkamania crap rolling, there's no there's no dilemma. There's no stakes. And that was the thing with WWF shows. You knew that there was nothing on the line. So when you're watching a WWF match where Hulk Hogan is fighting a fat guy, I'm watching NWA and I see Ric Flair getting into war games, who's a champion, who, in war games, you're going to bleed, you're going to get hurt. The whole nature of that match is to submit or surrender. And so it's not a pretty thing, but it's a great spectacle. And you just never would see Hulk Hogan engage in anything like that. Even the cage matches, like they had that blue cage that had
You
these
didn't like
way spaced out bars.
you didn't like the blue cage?
Nah, that was lame, man. And then you gotta climb up the top and run away from your opponent. Whereas the NWA's cage, it was an actual real cage with the spike, the little those little hard pieces on the edges of the cage that you can scrape your body with. It was a real hazard. You knew that there were stakes involved. There's no
But it,
stakes in the WWF.
okay, let's stay right there because 'cause not for nothing, I agree. I miss WCW so much. All I watch on YouTube is like old WCW stuff. Not really the Nitro stuff, but the old
Right.
NWA type stuff. But
Yeah.
those guys, you mentioned War Games, and War Games produced some of the greatest matches I've ever seen. That War Games 1992 Sting Squadron against the Dangerous
Oh, that was
Alliance.
good. That was great.
It's still one of the greatest pieces of artwork I've ever seen in my life. Those guys bled buckets all over the country.
Yep.
But to a man, they would all tell you when they came to work for Vince, they made the most money they've ever made.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I agree. I agree with that. Up to a certain point. So earlier, remember WCW was under, well, first it was NWA Jim Crockett's promotion, and then the company got sold off to Ted Turner, and so WCW really is from '88 up. So that's a newer company. So as time goes on, you look at your '91, which I think '91 was like one of the worst years of wrestling, especially for WCW. I think they had a lot of bad wrestling that year.
94, 95 was terrible.
'95 was a horrendous year for every wrestling promotion, I think. Probably only ECW was doing something entertaining. But other than that, WWF and WCW just sucked. Ric Flair putting on drag. Oh, Lord. I still remember that. Yeah, it was tough to watch. But as the time passes on, now you get to '95, you got Nitro. When Nitro hits, the whole game changed, and now guys
Okay, and
were getting
stop,
bigger
stop. Yeah,
contracts.
stop right there because now we're going to Nitro. So up until this point, Vince McMahon is like he's the leader, like he's leading in the industry, regardless whether his product is good or not. Mid early to mid '80s, his product was on fire. You
But
started to
was it
see
really
him.
though? But
Well, to us, because you got to remember, early to mid '80s, I'm still a kid, so I'm still red and yellow Hulk Hogan, you
mhm,
know, love affair.
mhm.
But as everything happens, if it doesn't translate to the next generation, then you start to see the decline. So in a move that nobody ever thought would ever happen, WCW signs Hulk Hogan. I think what they originally thought is that signing Hulk Hogan was just going to be this big major coup, but his first couple of years was a drag, and we're not going to get to '96 yet. But that '94, '95 was terrible for him.
Yeah, it was. It was very terrible. But that was an indictment on Hogan. That just exposed Hogan. I mean, the thing is at WCW we don't have Vince McMahon, so Vince McMahon can make things look a lot better and kind of guide the ship. Once Hulk Hogan came over with his mentality and the way he does business and his politics, WCW didn't have a guy there that could deal with that. So it just exposed all the problems it is having a Hulk Hogan on your roster and having a Hulk Hogan in control. Vince McMahon, I have to give him a lot of credit for that, because Hulk Hogan could be Hulk Hogan. As you can see, everything he's done outside of Vince McMahon, it kind of goes left. It's not it's not the greatest thing, but with Vince McMahon, he got the best out of him, and they needed each other. But Vince McMahon definitely, without Vince McMahon, that ain't working. The whole Hulkamania stuff, I don't believe works, and we proved it in '94, '95 in WCW. Just horrible match situations, horrible storylines. Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan, day one, Bash at the Beach. Ric Flair has to lose. Halloween Havoc, '94. Ric Flair has to lose. Clash of the Champions, Ric Flair has to lose. It was just Ric Flair just losing. And that's what goes back to what I was saying earlier. There's no stakes. There's nothing on the line. There's no jeopardy. And with Hulk Hogan, it's always gonna be that stereotypical ending. And it makes for bad wrestling, and it showed. Whereas you went from years prior, you had a more open organization as far as NWA and WCW, where you had older veterans like Flair and the Horsemen, younger up and coming, soon to be Hall of Famers like Brian Pillman, Sting, Luger. You just had a nice blend of old and new, and it just worked great. And once Hulk Hogan came in, it just completely destroyed everything. So yeah, it just that's more telling on Hogan than it is on WCW, I believe.
All right, so we all know Hulk Hogan, the Mr. Body, 24-inch python, say your prayers, take your vitamins, and his first 2 years in WCW is a complete flop. Now,
Well, not a flop, I would say.
uh, what did you like that 5-star what was that, the monster car match on top of Cobo Hall? You loved that?
That was horrendous. That was horrendous.
You liked his match against the Booty Man?
Oh Lord! Again, see, that's more politics by Hogan. I'm gonna wrestle my best friend in the main event. That's that Hogan stuff, man. That hurts. That really hurts. But
So, no,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was just saying, but that's his legacy, man. I mean, a lot of we're made to believe that Iron Sheik is the bad guy and whatnot, but
yeah, Iron Sheik hates Hulk Hogan.
We're cheering for Iron Sheik these days.
So here we are in 1996,
Mm-hmm.
Bash at the Beach.
Mm-hmm.
The unthinkable happens. You have the Outsiders versus Team WCW. What was it? Sting, Lex Luger, and Macho Man.
Yeah.
Against Scott Hall and Kevin Nash in their third man. The heels are getting the best of Team WCW. Luger's already out of the match. And then out of the back to save the day comes Hulk Hogan. Now me, at 16 years old, still a Hulkamaniac, I was jumping up and down when I saw him walking down the aisle.
You were?
I'll let you take it away. What ended up happening?
A big swerve. Hogan dropped the leg on Macho Man, and that was it. He was a third guy. A big swerve. One of the biggest moments in wrestling history.
So Hulk Hogan is now dirty heel.
But he had been a heel before in the WWE.
Yeah, but before he was
unknown.
But he used to wrestle Andre. When he was in AWA, he was kind of a heel and stuff like that. But
yeah.
Did you like his heel run?
As far as NWO?
Well, yeah.
Half and half, because to me, I think the NWO just took too much. They just, every week, guys were just getting beat up. And that was the whole shtick. At the end of Nitro, a bunch of guys are going to come out, a bunch of WCW guys. They're going to rotate the roster. So one night it's going to be maybe the Giant and the Dungeon people with Kevin Sullivan. Maybe they're getting beat up. The next night it might be the Horsemen getting beat up. And they just go through WCW's roster, and it's just always NWO beats up WCW, blah, blah. In the beginning, the first few, because it was new, it was okay. But then now we're 6 months in. Now we're 1 year in. Now we're 2 years in. Now we're 3 years. And that was again that whole Hogan politics stuff where he didn't understand that there's a give and there's a take. You gotta
So
have you gotta have a challenge somewhere, or else what are we watching?
so I so now we're going into like 97, 98-ish territory. And
Mhm.
this is where WCW started kicking Vince McMahon's ass, because now the little Hulkamaniacs like me have now grown up into teenage boys. And we
Mhm.
love the raunchiness. We love the cursing and the violence and everything like that. And the NWO was giving you that with the
Mhm.
constant attacks on the roster. I never forget, and they still show it to this day, where they lawn darted Rey Mysterio into the side of the production truck. Like
Yeah.
you weren't seeing that type of stuff
Yeah.
back then. But I think for me the problem with the NWO is that it got too big. It ended
Mhm.
up when you have a faction that starts with 3 guys and it ends up to having 30 guys on it,
Yeah.
you got a problem.
Well, the
And
guys are getting tired of getting beat up, so they say, "Let me join the NWA." NWO.
yeah,
I mean,
and then the thing about it, it's mostly the good guys. So
yeah.
now you have no baby faces, and that has been the biggest indictment on Vince McMahon to
Mhm.
me,
Mhm.
outside of Hulk Hogan, and I guess I could throw John Cena in there. Vince McMahon cannot create baby faces. He cannot. And for those of you who don't know, a baby face is the good guy. So you got the
Mhm.
heel, which is the villain. The babyface is the good guy. And Vince McMahon cannot create baby faces. And
Mhm.
that has always been an indictment on him.
Mhm. Another thing, if we could just go back to like the 90, like the just 94-ish time, 93, 94. So, there's this whole thing that I don't understand why people are saying this because I don't get it. But they're talking about how WCW stole Hulk Hogan, WCW stole Macho Man, WCW stole all these people. They didn't steal anybody. Literally, Vince McMahon said these guys are washed up. These
Yeah.
guys are older. We need to start looking into the next generation. That's why he threw his energy into Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart and all these other people. But
And
if
he
anything, the
wanted
only person that stole was Vince McMahon. He literally stole Jake the Snake. He stole Hogan.
he
Ted,
stole
all these
Hogan.
guys were from other companies.
So yeah, and I agree with that, because all the billionaire Ted skits and all that, and the Nacho Man and the Huckster
Hmm.
and all that stuff, Steam Gene, these guys still have contracts.
Hmm.
And the thing with Macho Man was that he didn't. I think Hogan may have been the politician that he is, but I think with Macho Man, he wanted to return to the ring. He didn't just want to be a commentator,
Right.
and that was the thing where him and Vince just had the parting of ways. Um, so Nitro is destroying Monday Night Raw. I mean, like destroying, because I'm gonna ask you if you remember this, but you used to give me a number to call to hear the ratings. You remember what that number was?
I don't remember what the number was, but yeah, I know. I know they were
And
beating the hell out of him.
yeah, they were killing them. And but again, like in that whole NWO run, nobody was getting over. One person got over in
Hmm.
that whole. You know what?
Goldberg.
Before I bring up that, well, you already said, but before we get to that person, what do you think? That I don't know. Do you listen to Eric Bischoff? His
His
Eric Bischoff.
podcast, yeah, yeah, 83 weeks.
Yeah. So what do you think about, and because the big thing back then, I didn't know then because it was like 96 and I wasn't into the dirt sheets and stuff. I'm not into dirt sheets now, but now that I'm older, I love to revisit the nostalgia and stuff. What do you think about the fact that it was such a last minute decision for Hogan to be the third man, and that Sting was probably going to be the third man if Hogan didn't do it. Do you think Sting would have did it justice the way Hogan did?
I think I have to agree with Scott Hall. It probably wouldn't have made sense because it has more weight with Hogan because he is from WWF. You have to have a person from WWF. Sting is a homegrown talent in WCW. That wouldn't have as much meaning to it, I don't think. I think it would still be a big deal, of course, but would it be as a big deal where everybody's still talking about it today? No. No,
Yeah,
you have to have Hulk Hogan. You
I
have to
couldn't
have
see it
Hulk
any
Hogan.
without Hogan.
Yeah, you have to have Hulk Hogan or somebody on that level, like maybe an Ultimate Warrior or something.
Ah, God, that wouldn't have worked.
No,
Ugh.
Ultimate Warrior, he's horrible with the talking, but Hulk Hogan is your best bet. It worked out good, and he needed it for God's sakes, because Hulk Hogan was getting booed in the shows. Sting and Scott Hall talked about that, about how Hogan was getting booed. So Sting said, "Oh my God, I better do something because if Hogan's getting booed, I'm going to be next." So that's when the Crow gimmick came up. So
Okay.
which
So
came up from Scott Hall. Scott Hall's the one that came up with that for Sting.
all right, so we just going down memory lane then. We're just gonna have a whole history lesson then. So
Yeah,
let's talk about it. The biggest blunder by WCW
the
was Crow
biggest
Sting.
blunder.
In that time, 97, 98, the biggest blunder at that time was the Crow Sting gimmick.
You think so?
Yeah, listen, they had this man not talk for 18 months or however long.
Yeah,
And then you finally build up this Starcade match with Hogan and Sting
yep.
in what's supposed to be WCW's crowning moment.
Which
And
is still the biggest pay per view ever for
yeah, but that's
WCW.
because people thought it was going to be good. It was terrible. And then your bright idea,
Yeah,
your brilliant idea is let's recreate the Montreal Screwjob.
yeah, that was horrible. Yeah, you don't do stuff like that.
I mean, why can't a babyface just this guy hadn't talked for 18 months, and I love the way they turned it, because it was more so like his team didn't believe that he was WCW, and he was like, well, you're not gonna see much of me anymore, and he just basically disappeared. And
Right,
they
right.
paid him to wear white paint and sit in the rafters for 18 months. Like he literally just did nothing.
Yeah.
This guy's crowning achievement, crowning moment, and you do a screwy referee finish. And not for nothing, truth be told, that was not a fast count.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't a fast count. No, it was regular. Actually, it was supposed to be a fast count, but Nick Patrick messed it up.
But that's the most WCW thing.
Yeah, they had everything right then and there. It was the perfect setting to do something big. But again, it's another match. It's another event surrounding Hulk Hogan, where things can't be straightforward. Hulk Hogan, nobody gets to pin Hulk Hogan with it being straightforward. Only Ultimate Warrior in 1990 WrestleMania 6 got a clean finish with Hulk Hogan. Even Andre couldn't get a clean finish. We had to have
Yeah.
two referees that didn't know that they grew up in the same household.
I
Hey,
was
who are you?
had plastic surgery.
I had plastic surgery. My God. Yeah, I mean, so I wonder how much influence was Hulk Hogan in that finish? How much did he have to do with that finish being like that? And
Well,
I'm sure,
Patrick says that Nick Patrick says that somebody told me to do a fast count. He didn't say who it was, but come on. Come on.
mm-hmm,
We know who it
mm-hmm,
was.
yep. Yeah,
So
those are the theatrics and the clowny stuff that kind of take away and make wrestling less than what it has to be. They just got to. I just don't understand. Like even on pay per view, there should be a rule. You can't have gimmicks. It has to be a winner. It has to be a loser. There's no count out. There's no interference or disqualification. None of that. It has to be a legitimate ending. You can do all that other stuff on the TV shows, but on pay per view, you have to have something real.
I know,
Oh,
I know, I know you weren't watching WWF in like the early like in 2012, 13ish. Could
Mm-mm.
have been a little later, but they did a finish on pay-per-view. So you talk about bad finishes. They did a finish on pay-per-view against Daniel Bryan and Randy Orton, where the
Mm-hmm.
Big Show came out and just knocked both of them out. So you have your two title contenders laying in the ring like a sack of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wins the title. So now the title's up for abeyance.
Oh, God, really?
Yeah, listen, bro. Man, that's what I'm saying, man. Vince for everything, and I credit Vince McMahon as being a genius because, and the reason I do is because he found a way to entertain me since I was 5 years old,
Yeah.
and that's not, that's not easy. That I don't lose interest in things like that, because let's look at it this way. I don't watch the NBA, and you remember how big of an NBA fan I was. I lost interest in it. I don't watch
Mm-hmm.
baseball. I don't watch baseball. I watched it for a few years, couldn't get into it. But
Mm-hmm.
wrestling has been, and I stopped watching wrestling for like 4 or 5 years when the whole Chris Benoit thing happened.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? That's it. I can't do this anymore. And I
Oh,
stopped watching for
we
like,
need to talk about Chris Benoit too.
oh yeah, we're gonna get there. I stopped watching for about 4 to 5 years. So WCW basically screws Sting. He wins, but I mean, and if you listen to Eric Bischoff, you'll hear that Sting he wasn't in the right headspace at the time. So,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So WCW creates a character,
Mm-hmm.
and I know he's a ripoff of somebody, but whatever. It doesn't matter. We all steal from some people. WCW creates a character by the name of Goldberg.
Hey, he's not a
Ultimate
ripoff of anybody.
ultimate babyface, Stone Cold Steve Austin ripoff.
Nah, I've never ever looked at Goldberg and said, "Oh, that reminds me of Steve Austin." I
The
never
black
heard that until I watched WWF DVDs, and then they're saying that in the DVD, and I'm like, "What?"
the black trunks, the boots, and the goatee, and
Oh no, a lot
do
of
it for
guys
you.
wear black trunks and boots.
Okay, so let me ask you: Do you think Demolition was a ripoff of the Road Warriors?
100%. That was in
Oh,
your face.
see, come on
One
now.
hundred percent.
I want see, and I knew this. I was thinking, I was contemplating. I'm like, damn, can I really do a show about wrestling? You damn right. If you're talking to the right person, Demolition was its own thing. How
Nah,
in the hell did you say
there's no demolition without the Road Warriors. They got the spikes.
no?
They got it
No,
on all black.
the Powers of Pain were Road Warriors ripoffs, not
They were
Demolition.
as well too. They were too. The Road
No,
Warriors
man.
influenced a lot of people to try to be like them. Sting and Ultimate Warrior being the Blade Runners. They are rip off of the Road Warriors as well.
Because,
There's,
but look at, look at what you're saying. We're talking
mhm,
about body guys, Sting, Warrior, Warlord, Barbarian. Then you
mhm,
got Axe and Smash, two
mhm. Out of all
bodies,
those people you name, I don't think Axe and Smash can be considered bodybuilders.
nobody, exactly. They were their own things. I mean, and
Nah, that one don't fly, Trevor. That don't fly. That ain't flying at all. That's completely grounded. The Demolition was an in-your-face ripoff of the Road Warriors. The Demolition is Walmart, and the Road Warriors is Target.
you might be right though, because when Vince finally got the the LOD, he
Mhm.
he pushed Demolition right down the card. So
Exactly.
all right. So, well, since we're talking about tag teams, who's your favorite tag team of all time?
Oh, Steiner Brothers, without a question, they're the greatest tag team ever.
Yeah, I was thinking the same.
Nobody's close. Johnny would get all mad at me. Johnny Smith would get all mad at me for saying, "Oh, the Road Warriors are the best." Road Warriors are awesome, but they ain't the
Yeah,
Steiner Brothers. The Steiner
yeah.
Brothers worldwide, just beating ass all over the country, going into other people's territory, beating ass.
Do you
They won
watch
so many championships.
do you watch anything like the current, or do you still watch current product?
No, not really. I get kind of upset. like there's this whole thing about like oh, this match is so great, and then you watch the match and you'll see two guys that literally look like they're doing a orchestrated
Yeah.
dance number. It doesn't look convincing at all. You could tell when they do the move, they're just doing it just to do it so the guy can do the next thing and then the next thing. It's just so lame. It doesn't look like it's a struggle, a competitive, even though, wrestling is choreographed. We understand that. But what we used to see would be a constant struggle. Just watching WCW Saturday Night, Ravi Shankar tagged up with this guy, and I remember they were wrestling some no-name bums on the weekend, which is what I like to call them that. And he threw the guy to the rope, holding him by the neck with his momentum, bringing him down on the back of his neck. Damn near broke that guy's neck. That's just a random guy on a random night. It wasn't like it was a big event on pay-per-view or anything. I mean, that is like legit looking. That has to be. You can't fake gravity. So he had to have gotten hurt. Whereas what these guys are doing right now, it just look like they ain't hurting each other. They ain't doing nothing. They're just dancing with each other.
So not a
So,
fan of the Young Bucks, huh?
I don't go out of my way to hate them. I'm just like,
All right, we got to end this interview because there's no way in the hell that you could like the Young Bucks.
I'm just saying. I don't think.
I can't take them serious.
You can't take them serious.
Listen, if I see if I see Rick and Scott Steiner, even now, I'd be like, boy, you know what? Me and these guys are going to have a hell of a fight if we fight. If I see the Young Bucks in person, I'm like, get the hell out of here! Like, what is this? Oh, I cannot believe you. I thought you were going to kill them.
No, I mean, I try not to go too hard on it, but I don't. There's some wrestlers today that are good. There's some tag teams today that are good. They're not bad. I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that guy to be like, oh, well, in my day they used to do. I mean, but I just don't like, like I was saying, that whole choreograph thing. It's usually in Japan that I see it, like guys that are doing that in Japan and stuff. I find that just odd. The guys of today, they keep saying it's a different time. Undertaker just says they're wimps or they're weak and whatnot. But I don't want to be too hard because in the '80s, guys were snorting crack, cocaine, and I mean, my God, the Road Warrior. There's footage. There's actual video of the. It looked like it was Great American. Yeah, I think it was Great American Bash '87. In the backstage, you see Lex Luger, but Lex Luger, it didn't look like he was doing anything. He was just laughing. But you see the Road Warriors. You can see Hawk. He was snort. He literally snorted on camera, and then Dr. Death, Steve Williams, and other people that were partaking in that. And that's just crazy to see that. It's like he's just openly in the back doing it, and the guy's recording it on VHS.
And now the wrestlers all love each other and tweet about each other and play video games. So
that's not bad. I don't hold them. I don't hold them for that. I don't hold them for that.
So let me. Well, I need you to do something for me then, because if you like the Young Bucks, I mean,
I didn't say I like the Young Bucks.
I literally just want to hang up on you now. But if I need you to watch a match if you haven't watched it. I don't remember where it's from, but if it's more than one, just watch both of them. I need you to watch. I think it's from NXT Toronto. I need you to watch the Revival versus DIY.
Okay.
If you ever wanted to see a modern day Horseman versus Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express versus Rock and Roll, I mean a real genuine babyface team in peril, you watch DIY against the Revival. That is one of the greatest matches I've ever seen ever.
Ever.
I need you to watch that.
That's a bold statement, man. That's a bold statement.
For a long time, but that match is when I could be watching a match and literally sitting there crying because it's so good, you just don't know which way it's going. It got me. Damn, see, we went and got all the modern stuff. I figured that this was going to happen, man. So I want to get back to Goldberg.
Yeah.
So what take on Goldberg? I loved Goldberg.
Straight Talk with Trevor, the podcast where no topic is off limits.